Demon Clung, Hartra Monologues. I hope the audio is a little bit better now than it was the last episode. Hope so. Worked on a little bit. See if we could fix that. May be that I might need a new microphone. It's possible. All right. Continuing along the lines of the first episode of the year, this being the second episode of 2022. And we will continue with the list. Hold on while I pull it up. All right, we stopped at number 17 last time. So to recap, this is just a list of the upcoming episodes, topics that I will be talking about. And there's about 73 or 4 or 5 of them. And we got, like I said, up to 17 on the other one. So maybe we can get through the whole list this time. And if you hear anything, any topic that you might be interested in listening to about, look for it in the episodes that are coming up this year. And listen to the others as well. I'm sure it might be entertaining, enlightening, educational. You might learn something. And then you might have something you want to discuss with, your friends and so on. Not necessarily with me. This is a monologue. Hey, it's the way it goes. All right, number 18. Chapel de Tara. Truth and Reason, Atheist Humanist Sanctuary of Happiness is what that is. Sanctuary of Happiness, which is what Chapel de Tara means. Chapel, sanctuary. De Tara, Tarah. That means Truth and Reason, Atheist Humanist. And I am a humanist. All right. Ordained, in fact. So I might have mentioned that in the first episode, the last one. All right. Here's a phrase. We'll just throw that at you, and you can just think about it. Oppression, suppression, repression, depression, expression. I will elaborate a little bit on what I mean by those shuns. All right. The next one is ingest, digest, express. Now, it's sort of what do you call it? Maybe a mantra that I adhere to. It simply means ingest data, information, observations, so forth, and let that digest. In fact, sometimes you just let it gel. Put it to the little brain cells there, and then express from those observations that you've just digested the data. All right, we'll get into that a little bit more, but that's more or less an artistic mantra. You can tell that by the fact that it had express at the end. Just like the previous one with oppress, suppress, repress, depress, repress, express. All right. The essence of substance. Now, there are other kinds of essences. There's the essence of an idea, and so on. So if that interests you, make a note of it. All right. Human sexuality. Big topic here. There's a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of disinformation, a lot of brainwashing going on. I don't like to use the word brainwashing anymore. That's an old Cold War expression. I think we needed something new. I think probably indoctrination, manipulation, conditioning, and that sort of thing is what's going on today. Not so much brainwashing. though it's probably all under the heading of brainwashing. And human sexuality. People have the wrong idea. They have beliefs that they have learned and been taught and indoctrinated with over the years of their lives since day one, since their birthday. All kinds of ideas put in their heads until at some point when they're like older and they get older and they get go through puberty, they become uh, young adults. Some people like to use the word adolescence. We'll get into that. And we'll talk about human sexuality in a social basis, on a government basis, legal basis, and so forth. So we'll get into the human sexuality. And I'll try to give you some insight into the nature of human beings and human sexuality, and express some thoughts on the laws that are made up, fabricated out of thin air for the most part, that oppress human sexuality and cause it to be repressed and cause it to be suppressed, and that leads to depression, and that leads to, if you're smart, if you're able, if you have the gumption, that you might express your objections to this indoctrination and so forth, and learn the true value of human sexuality and how it actually works in biology and um, human existence and human realities. All right. Second one. Okay, next. The liberation of youth. Well, that goes along with human sexuality as well. And that has to do with liberating our youth from the oppression, suppression, repression, and depression that they have to endure at the hands of adults, supposedly, who, like to control you, control freaks, and religious zealots and lunatics and so forth. All right, human sexuality, we get into that. The liberation of youth, like, dress codes, for example. We need to liberate the American youth from these archaic, anti-freedom, anti-human, anti-science, anti-anything. They're just wrong. Dress codes. All right. The indoctrination, manipulation, conditioning, duping of American society and humanity. Yes, well, you know what I just said about that. We'll talk about all of that. Liberty and the struggle to be free. Well, it's difficult times, and we're not free, and we're not being able to, we're struggling to get through this pandemic, struggling to get through the misinformation, the disinformation, and all of the different things like the mandates and these weird things with the vaccines. It's not a vaccine, and so on. All right, we'll get into that probably pretty soon because it's relevant today. All right, but the struggle continues. The struggle goes on. And by the way, a lot of people have wrong ideas about that as well. So we'll have to see if we can bring some light to the subject. All right, where was I? Here's the thing: freedom with responsibility. They go together. You can't have one without the other. For example, you have freedom of speech, but there has to be responsibility. There has to be accountability. There are, whether you like it or not, consequences. Good speech, bad speech, or whatever. And I don't go with this hate speech business as far as a crime is concerned, but it just, we'll get into that. And the problem with this responsibility is a lot of people aren't being responsible with their freedom of speech, and they're just saying all kind of bullshit and lies and propaganda and jerking people around and misinformation and so forth. All right, next. Equality and the acceptance of difference. Now, that kind of goes on to, we go back to that part about individualism and where everyone is unique, one of a kind, in a personal level, even though we're all humans. And by the way, human race is just not a thing. All right? I don't care what you think. I don't care what you heard. I don't care what you've been brainwashed into believing. I don't care how, educated you might be, that have allowed this misthinking to get into your brain. But, it's the human species. The human race is a totally different thing. There's no human race. There are races. For example, Caucasian, Negroid. We just give it colors: black, white, brown, red, yellow, and so forth. Very distinct. You can't really hide that, can you? If you're a brown person, and I don't like to say black because, they're not black. There are very few people that I've seen in my life that are actually black. There's some that are really dark, but most are brown. All right. Which is a beautiful color, by the way. I'll get into that as well. All right. Next thing. Inequality. My main concern and focus is in this situation is the concept of equal under the law. Now, that pertains to government, doesn't it? If it has to do with laws, it has to do with government. Because how many laws do you have in your life as a person, as an individual, living your life? How often do you see government? How often do you see anyone that represents government? Unless you're watching freaking Fox News or something stupid like that. I don't know. Would you be that silly to do that? I don't know. Maybe you would. Anyway, I've seen Fox News. I know what it's about. Anyhow. Fox News is not a bad thing to watch if you want to gather data and then try to do some critical thinking about what you heard there and analyze what you heard and put it in perspective. The talking heads are pretty much a waste of time. If you're just talking about news itself, then fine. Just the facts, ma'am. Keep your opinions for another time. All right. Where was I? Ah. All right. Capitalism, free enterprise, free market. I will expound on the concept of capitalism, what it is, and why it's a good thing, and so forth. All right. I am in favor of free market, free enterprise, and I'm in favor of the government keeping its nose out of business. Yeah, but if we don't have regulations, blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, I'll talk about that later. Incorporation schemes. Oh, well, that's an easy one. Incorporation schemes. Anything that you have to get permission from the government to do or a license from the government, that's a corporation. If you ask for permission for something, you're asking for permission. That is, you asking for to be granted permission to exercise a privilege. For example, if you join the marriage program, which is not marriage at all, you become incorporated. As soon as you get that marriage license, which is really a wedding license, we'll get into that, but it's not marriage at all. It's a program like food stamps or welfare or Social Security or whatever. It's not about marriage at all. And I will get into some history on the marriage thing and detail that a little bit. All right, that's one of those things. If you get a driver's license, you've asked for permission to exercise a right. Because driving is not a right. It is not a privilege. It is a right. The right to travel. The right to move from one place to another. Free and unencumbered by government and government regulations, etc. Now, I realize we have to have certain rules of the road. It is always a good idea to, obey the stop sign. Now, are you really obeying the stop sign? Are you really obeying government or complying with government when you stop at a stoplight? Really? Or are you just using a little common sense and figuring out cooperation, coordination with other drivers? Stay on the road. Don't drive on the sidewalk with your car. Don't take your diesel F-150, whatever, and just drive across someone's yard. I don't need to tell you what's wrong with that. It's just wrong, and you know it. And, you wouldn't do it. You don't need a law telling you not to do that. It's just common sense. All right. At any rate, that's Corporation Scheme. And I might note here that if you become incorporated, businesses. If you go down to the city or state to get a license to be in business, let's say they call it what? They call it a business license. You don't need that to operate a business, because operating a business is a human right. It's sort of like earning a living. It's a right. You don't need a license to exercise a right. All right? So we will get into the details about that in that particular episode. All right, what else have we got here? Oh, and don't fall for the incorporation schemes. Churches are incorporated, a lot of them, most of them in America, which means they're not really free enterprise, not really not really charitable organizations or anything like that. They're just, you're not exercising your freedom of religion. You become a corporation, you're no longer exercising a right. You're exercising a privilege. Because the church got a license. It become incorporated, and that's a privilege thing. All right? I'll delve into that a bit, too. All right. Hate, hysteria, racism, discrimination, fake patriotism. Oh, yeah. Nationalism, any color nationalism you want to call it, white nationalism or whatever. Theocracy, which is what they want this country to be. The freaking lunatic freak, control freak, bullying, crazy fuckers that think that God and religion has anything to do with government. We'll get into that. And other forms of stupidity is what I wrote there. All right. Nudity is natural. You have the right to be nude. The laws against it are wrong. I will get into that, and I will also explain why some of the nudists, and they call themselves naturists or naturalists or whatever they did it. I'll explain some of the shortcomings and defects in their thinking in regards to nudism and, heading off to a nudist resort or whatever on the weekends and stuff like, I got to pay money and go someplace and hide and be naked behind a wall or something. That's just silly. And then you see on Facebook and other, they've got little groups for nudists and stuff that, and they show a picture of a naked person with the little things over the nipples and shit, which is stupid. And, yes, freedom, and I'm sorry. And somebody inevitably says, you're beautiful. Like, I'm sorry, but you're not supposed to be talking about beauty. You're not supposed to even notice that woman has nice tits. I'm sorry. That is not being a nudist. You're going against the very premise that you're expounding on. No body shaming, no fat shaming, accept people what they are. And then you turn around and compliment somebody that's beautiful, which in itself, it sounds very sexy. It's supposed to be, what is it? Non-sexual social nudity. All right? Seriously. Anyway, we'll talk about that a little bit. Nudists and nudity. And you have every right to be naked if you want. It's nude. Nude. Nude is without clothes. Naked is without feathers. Seriously. All right. The age of consent. All right. The age of consent. There are all kinds of reasons why That's wrong. Nature determines when you're old enough to consent. When your body is actually able to reproduce, then your body is going to tell your brain, I want to have sex and make babies. And you might say to yourself consciously, I don't want to make babies. I just want to have sex because it feels good and I want to and I want to. And, perfectly natural and there's nothing wrong with that. All right. Age of consent laws are ridiculous. They should be abolished. And instead of being abolished, they're going the wrong way by making it some sort of universal law that, you have to be 18 to be able to consent, which is stupid, considering that it's totally unnatural, anti-freedom, and it's just illogical, irrational, and just stupid. All right, we'll talk about that some more. Abortion is a medical procedure. It is part of health care. It is perfectly natural and normal and necessary in many cases. All right? I will explain that. And first off, I want to tell you this. If you want the government to make abortion illegal, you're a monster. You're an idiot, and you're a monster. It's that simple. All right? If you think it's wrong, don't have one. If you think someone else shouldn't have one, shut up. Mind your own business. This is like the last word here. I mean, these people get on the Facebook and the different places and they argue and bicker and argue and bicker on and on and on and on and on. And no matter what you say, they just keep talking, keep arguing, keep ignoring the facts, keep ignoring reality, keep ignoring sane thinking. They just keep talking stupid shit like a fetus is a baby. No, it's not. I'll get into that in some detail. I've talked about some of these things already, but it's time to refresh and bring it up to date, a lot of the topics that I've talked about on the episodes previously. And I've done over 300 episodes, by the way, over the past, maybe 5 years, so maybe less. All right, what else we got here? The right to keep and bear arms. That's been talked to death. You have the right to keep and bear arms. You have that right. The Constitution of the United States acknowledges that right. It doesn't establish that right. It doesn't give you that right. You've got that right from the day you're born. The ability to exercise that right to keep and bear arms comes with maturity and with responsibility. And your parents probably should give you a little heads up on how to be responsible with a firearm or a knife or a sword or a cane or a stick or whatever. All right. Freedom from religion. I shouldn't even have to talk about that, but there are so many lunatics in this country right now. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable because retarded is the word. These people are freaking retarded. No smart, intelligent person with an IQ over 100 is going to believe that crap. It's just absolute nonsense. And if you let your critical thinking kick in and think logically, rationally, and sanely, be a smart person. All right, we'll get into that. All right, next one. I have the right to be free of religion because religion is dangerous and it is hurtful and harmful and disgusting and evil. Whatever. All right, and I am not just talking about Christianity. Muslims, Islam, etc. All right. Another bunch of crazies. I mean, super crazies. Those crazies. So they're both equally crazy, I think, probably, if you get right down to it. Just idiotic. They belong in the 1200s. They don't belong in the 21st century. I'm sorry. All right. The Bible is junk. I will talk about the Bible. It's not as if it hasn't been talked about and talked about and talked about. It's not as if we haven't discussed the world community has not discussed Christianity and the Bible ad infinitum since forever. All right, it's junk. Like for example, Noah, big boat, couple of animals, one of, male and female, get them on the boat. It's going to rain for 40 days, 40 nights. Not going to happen. It's impossible. I don't care. God can do anything, but God cannot make it rain 40 days and 40 nights and flood the entire planet and kill every human being on the planet, particularly considering the, people in other continents that weren't right around in that little area where the story originated and actually was stolen from some other pagans, whatever. It just, if you believe that, you're like, what, 4 years old? Come on. Like, oh, I believe in Santa Claus. Yeah, and Tooth Fairy, and, this invisible guy in the sky. It's ridiculous. Anyway, the fake state of Israel. Words come to mind. One of them is genocide. The other one is stealing people's land. Killing them, stealing them, torturing them, being terrorists against the rightful owners of that land. Palestine area. It's a fake state. They created it. Somebody, like, England and stuff, they just created this land and created this country and said, hey, we're going to put this country right here in the middle of frickin' Palestine. Oh, Palestine was never a country. Blah, blah, blah. It doesn't matter. People lived there. They thought they were living in a place called Palestine or something similar or something in the neighborhood. And they thought, this is our home. This is where we live. We own property here and so forth. We have for generations. And, oh, bam, all of a sudden, oh, what? You mean my farm, my place, my fig trees, they belong to Israel, Jewish people now? What the hell? Anyway, we'll elaborate on that a little bit. And oh, by the way, on Gab, they're always talking about the Jews. Jews, 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 Jews. And I keep thinking, like the Holocaust, that's not true, it's not real, it's a hoax, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? It's a horrible story. And anything that is, even if it wasn't exactly true the way it was told in history, it's still horrible what was done to people, any people. I mean, if you got if you're like retarded and you were German, or whatever, bam, kill them. Gypsies, kill them. Jews, definitely kill them, etc., etc., etc. They weren't in the gas chambers. There's no evidence. Yeah, well, guess what? Doesn't matter. People died. They were treated badly, and they died. And they were tortured and suffered, and it's just disgusting. And anyway, oh, it's a hoax. Yeah, fuck you. You're an idiot. Don't want to hear, don't talk to me. All right, moving on to the next thing here. Move it along, move it along. Subjective versus objective. That's emotions versus logic. All right. Opinions versus logical conclusions and critical analytic observations. I mentioned that in the previous episode. All right. Yeah. You can have an opinion, and it could be a pretty accurate observation, and it could be, even a logical conclusion, but guess what? Nobody cares what I think my opinion is of cooked spinach. Cooked spinach is yucky. That's an opinion. Because you might not think so. Well, it is. Actually, it's lucky. That's a fact. It is yucky and slimy and yucky. If you cook it, it's yuck. It's an opinion, but it's based on fact or observations. And I've observed cooked spinach, and it's yuck. All right? You might not think it's yucky, but it is. And you may like it. But if you like yucky things and slimy eating, go fine, good, go for you. Not in my house. Well, actually, the wife can eat cooked spinach if she wants. I don't care. Because, freedom. And yeah, and the wife has the right to eat what she wants. I'm not eating it, and she better not shove it in my face because she knows better. Because my wife is an intelligent, decent person and wouldn't do that. That's why. All right, okay. Let's see what else we got here. Coming up on the 30-minute mark. Archer Monologues, you know what it is. The Books of Oculus Dar. Won't elaborate on that now. Words in a Row, that's the name of my 2 volumes of poetry that have been published and are there and available on Amazon. And probably Barnes & Noble. All right. And other places, including me. Directly from me if you want. All right. Let's see. Humans as works of art. Yes. Living sculpture. That's the way I look at people when I'm in that mode. I mean, I might be in a different kind of mode at different times, and I might think of people as, you know, sex objects. Ooh, you can't do that. Yeah, I can. And perfectly normal. Come on, people. Does that mean I'm going to rape anybody? No. Don't, just get real. All right. It's all right to think. It's all right to fantasize. It's a part of human nature. It's perfectly normal. Everybody does it. I'm sorry to tell you. Even you. Even if you deny it, I know you, then you're lying. I don't think about it. Yes, you do. You know you do. Don't give me that shit. All right. Music, power, influence. It can move your soul, baby. All right, and I'll have a few examples of my music and my songs that I've written and so forth to uh, give you some, give you a sample of that. Poetry speaks to everything with rhythm and rhyme. And there are a lot of people, they come up with this thing a generation ago, I suppose, or two, and they said, this is prose poems, prose poetry. And like hippies, they come up with this, it's just, I'm listening and I said, that's not poetry. I'm sorry. Poem has rhythm, it has meter, it has rhyme. If it doesn't, it's just not a poem. It's prose, and you might put prose into rhythm and, call it rap. All right, we'll get into that. Let's see, where was I? And by the way, nothing is sacred. Nothing. If it's human, it's human. There's no like, oh, I am mighty God of humanity. No, we're all flesh and blood. We all are human. We all just part of the human condition, and there's no real special thing about us as people. Individuals can be special. I'm special. I'm the most important person on the world. To me, that's not narcissism. I'm just being practical. Without me, I'm not me. If I'm dead, I'm not alive. Let's be reasonable here. All right. I'm opposed to punishment. I know, we gotta punish people for doing bad things. And I agree that there needs to be some kind of consequences for behaviors that are not agreeable in society, like robbery and rape and murder and things like that. There should be consequences. I don't think the idea of punishing people in that sense is the proper word and the proper concept. We need to think of it in a little different terms. I'll get into that in detail when the time comes. And by the way, when you don't put insane people in prison with sane criminals, if you murder someone, you're not sane. Crazy people murder people. Sane people don't. So if you know someone that murdered someone, insane, they belong in an insane asylum. All right? If you just some kid that, got caught with a bag of marijuana and they put you in jail, prison for, like a couple of years, whatever, because you had marijuana, then you're not insane and you shouldn't be in a prison either. But we'll get into it. All right. Fantasy fiction, the right of free thought and such things as porn, for example. And I know what porn is. Porn is something that the person who made the porn, that is to say, if he made the video or they made the photograph or they wrote the story or something of that nature, if it was the intention of the person who created the so-called porn, was his intention or her intention was to, say, inspire the sexual interests and arouse is what I'm looking for here. If you're looking to arouse the reader or the viewer, then you can call it porn. If the author of the story is not intending to arouse the reader's sexuality, to make them horny, whatever, then it's not porn. Nudity, for example, is not porn. If you're looking at a photograph, by the way, a photograph is not a person. Photographs are like little flat objects, like two-dimensional with color, and on a screen on a computer, pixels. There's no people there. A picture of a tree is not a tree. All right. And I'll get into that and elaborate on that in some detail when the time comes. And porn's a good thing, by the way. And I write porn, I make porn, I have made porn. I don't make videos anymore. I probably would if I could, if I had the opportunity, but I've got a lot of other things to worry about right now. Not worry about, but to enjoy doing, and I'll get to the porn when the time comes. But I do write porn. In fact, I've got 2 epic porn stories, poems. What did I call it in the description on the thing? Sexually explicit fantasy fiction. Porn, poetry. 2 epic poems, and like over 100 pages. Those are published. Published them through my publishing company called Real Deal Books, because it's Real Deal Books. Real DL Books. DL being me. DL. McClung. All right. I wish these damn cigarettes would stay lit and I didn't have to relight them every 2 seconds. Junk. They sell junk now at $10 a pack or whatever. All right. Where was I? Fantasy fiction. Censorship is wrong. Wrong, wrong, absolutely wrong, always wrong, period. Case closed. Then again, I'll have to talk about it. But still, that's the gist of it. It's wrong. Anyone who censors anything, anyone, it's wrong. Absolutely wrong, period. My website's not censored. My website is not rated. My website is not restricted. My website is not controlled by the government. It never will be. And my website is not, and my books and other things are not controlled, regulated, or oppressed, suppressed, repressed by anybody. Government, organizations, terrorist organizations like, Christian church organization, whatever. Nobody. And if you want to go to my website, you go to my website. It's free. It's open. Go there. Just know on the front page where it says no rating, no restriction, no censorship, you might find all kinds of things there. Like, for example, nudity. Not porn necessarily, but nudity. Because nudity is not, it's just a human body without clothes on. And you might find some there. It's labeled, I think, the website with the artwork that's the nudist artwork, nude work. It's called Nudes. That's the name of the page on my website where the nude pictures are. And not necessarily porn, because I didn't create those pictures with the intentions of arousing your sexuality. Not all, maybe some. Anyway, and by the way, there's a picture of me, full frontal nudity, on my website under the nude art section. All right, been on the internet for about 20 years. And oddly enough, I've never felt any emotions about it one way or another. It's just me, nude. I'm not ashamed. I don't feel guilty. I'm not embarrassed. It's just a picture. It's not me, because I'm sitting right here. I'm not on the website, on a screen, on my website. You follow me? No consequences. Now, I suppose at some point, if I ever run for president, someone's going to come up and say, hey, He's got nude pictures, porn on his website, blah, blah, blah. And, guess what? Doesn't matter. Because I'm allowed to do that. Because I'm a free person and I have the right to free speech, free exercise of expression and so forth. And, give me a break. All right. We're running out of time here. Let me look. I'm going to take a quick break. Hold on. All right. The next one is Autobiographical Fiction. It's fairly self-explanatory, I would think. It means I write fiction that has a bit of autobiographical information in the story. In other words, the story is based upon my life, perhaps, and perhaps something that happened in my life, something I observed in the world, something I did myself, or maybe not. And most of the things that I write about, like in my fantasy epic poems, I say in there, in the beginning, in the introduction, as well as in the body of the poem, that this is just fiction. It's just fantasy. It's not real. I didn't do it. I don't condone it. I don't advocate it. That sort of thing. All right. All right. Global warming, climate change. I'll talk about that a little bit. I don't think it's worth a whole lot of time, but there's a lot of confusion going on. There's a lot of hysteria, I think, involved, and people are just not using their capacity for critical thinking to figure this out and understand exactly what's going on with the global warming thing. I'm not saying it's a hoax. Climate change is real. Global warming, I don't know. Maybe. And so I've heard various conflicting reports. Someone saying it's a hoax. Somebody saying man-made didn't do it. Man-made has no control over it. Blah, 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 blah. So we'll get into that a little bit and see if we can make sense out of it. All right, COVID-19. Yeah. We've heard a lot about that, and I already mentioned it. We'll talk about it. All right, virginity. I bring that up separately because got some ideas for you on that. And by the way, being a virgin is not a virtue, and it's just a condition of being a human being. You're born, you're a virgin because you haven't had sex. Bingo. And it's a big deal about that. Like in the old days, you got to marry a girl who's a virgin. Why? Because that means she hasn't been with another man. Who freaking cares? Well, back in those days, maybe it had some meaning and had some purpose, and I will elaborate on that as well. All right, minds of old men. By the way, old men get old physically, and things don't function as well as they did when they were younger, and that happens. And I personally have experienced some limitations. not too many, but some. And I just want to let you know, just because I'm old doesn't mean I don't have a brain, and doesn't mean I don't still think like a 15-year-old. All right. Most men do, and if they say they don't, they're lying. I'm going to have sex with that 20-year-old. Yeah, you're 90 years old, dude. You're too old to have sex with a 20-year-old. But if you can talk her into it, hey, good for you, man. More power to you. Perfectly natural. They think these old men sitting around like, you're a dirty old man. I said, they're a normal, natural, dirty old man. That's just the way humans are. Men never, ever stop thinking about sex or pretty girls. And women are the same. Anyway, talk about that. I've got about 30 seconds. So I am on up on number 56. So it looks like I'm going to have another episode of topics. So I'm going to stop here, and I'll get back to the list the next time. And you just have a great day or a great night or a great life, and enjoy. Be happy. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye.